appreciate your time. We know that many of you have joined us in many different ways in participating in our survey, in our community conversations, and we're welcoming you back to our second community meeting. We're also going to be showing this presentation live on Facebook, but before we get to that, we do want to introduce our colleagues from the Language Access Austin, and they're just going to give a couple of directions right now on interpretation services. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to the organizers for making this a multilingual space. This afternoon, we are going to have interpretation services for English and Spanish. And so I'm going to ask everybody to look at the bottom of your screen. You're going to see a globe that says language interpretation. If you can please click on it, and you will see the option to select English or Spanish. Even if you are bilingual, I please ask everybody to pick a channel. It will make the experience much better for everyone. And my colleague, Tanya, right now will make a really quick test to make sure everybody in the English channel can hear us. Can you please let... Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a los organizadores por hacer de este un espacio multilingüe. Vamos a tener interpretación al inglés y al español esta tarde. Y les voy a pedir que por favor escojan un canal de idioma. Para hacerlo, se van a la parte de abajo de su pantalla en su computadora y van a ver un globo de un icono que dice interpretación de idiomas. Ahí pueden seleccionar el canal de su preferencia. Incluso si son bilingües, les vamos a pedir que por favor elijan un idioma. Si nos están acompañando desde un teléfono celular o desde una tableta, la interpretación de idiomas la van a encontrar en la parte de los tres puntitos donde dice más o more. Ahí seleccionan su idioma y tienen que hacer clic en listo o done para que realmente pueda funcionar la interpretación. Ahorita mi colega Tania se va a ir al canal de español a hacer una prueba, a ver si la pueden escuchar, por favor.
Thank you, Azucena. We appreciate your support with this portion of our presentation. And so we just want to go ahead and get started. If we can go ahead and put this live on Facebook. We're happy to see everyone that's here, our colleagues with the Colony Park Sustainable Community, our partners at the city, been working on this project for some time. Thank you to everyone from the Colony Park Lakeside Neighborhood Association who is also joining us. And I do want to make a special shout out to our staff who works behind the scenes for Cortez Consulting, Liliana Tabasco, who does a lot of the work. She'll be answering some of your questions on Facebook Live. She'll also be interacting with you on the chat. Victor Terrazas, who's supporting us with interpretation services, and our fabulous Jody Elderton, who made this presentation possible, all the wonderful graphics you see, the technology that we're able to do today. So just special shout out to them. Thank you so much for all your time and your work. So as we begin, we just wanted to share just a couple of Zoom housekeeping so we can run this meeting smoothly. We want to assure everybody that this meeting is recorded and it'll be also posted on the project website. It's Colony Park Aquatic Facility. You'll be able to view the presentation if you're unable to join us, or those of you who are joining us Facebook Live and want to re-watch or share this presentation, it will also be recorded. Most of you already have your mics muted, but if you can keep your mics muted, and of course you have any questions, just use the raise hand, but we will be taking comments and your questions in the chat. We'll also be making time to pause throughout the meeting to do a community check-in. So we'll make sure we get to all your questions and comments as we run through the meeting. So on the next slide, we want to share with you a little bit of the agenda for tonight. So the first thing we're going to be doing is introducing all the fabulous people that have been working on this project behind the scenes, the design team, everyone who is part of this project. My colleague Scott often says it takes a village, and it definitely does to get this project off the ground. We're also going to be going back and reflecting on everything we heard from community meeting number 1. We also want to thank the participants that were part of our community conversations. Big shout out to the LBJ Vertical team who allowed us to meet with students and really get the voices of many of the people who are going to take advantage of this cool pool, which is the children that live in this area. And then we are going to be sharing with you, many of you who've been part of Colony Park are aware of the Arts in Public Places. We have a beautiful mural that is currently near the Colony Park District Park. And Marjorie will be talking a little bit more about that. And then we'll be turning over this presentation to the design team. And they'll be going over a little bit about the site overview, and then they'll be finally sharing with you some of their pool concepts. And then at that point, we're going to be hosting an interactive community conversation session. Many of you that were with us before, we're going to be sharing a link in the chat, and we're going to be engaging with you to get your feedback on what you think about these pool concepts. And then more importantly, we're going to be telling you what the next steps are after this community meeting. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and meet the team. And so Scott, Sin, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Cortez, and welcome everybody to the second virtual community meeting for the Colony Park District Park Aquatic Facility. For those who may have missed the first meeting, my name is Scott Sin. I'm a landscape architect and the primary point of contact for this project. I'm just one of the many city employees who have a role in this project. Jody J will be the primary point of contact from the Aquatics Division, and Marjorie Flanagan will be your primary point of contact, senior project manager for the Art in Public Places. So as a reminder, we went through the standard City of Austin. So I like to keep reminding people what we did before. So in case for those who are joining us for the first time. So we went through a standard City of Austin selection process for each of the consultants that make up the design team. Your design team includes the design lead, Greg Houston and Sean Bacon with Marmon Mock Architecture. Gary Miller with Flint Co. LLC is responsible for the construction of your new pool. David Neugenbauer is the lead from ECM International. They are the management firm responsible for schedules, budgets, and keeping the project on task and moving forward. And obviously, as you've met and heard already tonight, Cortez Consulting in charge of community engagement, and so happy to have them part of this. So to start to reflect again is what we talked about in the first meeting. So per the 2018 Aquatic Plan, Colony Park is recognized as a community pool and a top priority for construction. So this slide serves as a baseline for the start of the pool design process. It shows a list of the features associated with a community pool. They were listed as part of the community input that was done at the last meeting. So keep this in mind as Dr. Cortez I'll turn it over to you to go into the results of that community input from the first meeting. Very excited to see these.
Awesome, thank you, Scott. So as we mentioned, we want to reflect on what we heard and kind of what were the things that we asked in our last meeting. So one of the big questions that we started off with was a word cloud, and we asked, what do you have as a vision for this pool? And as you can see there, these are the over 200 comments that came in that you shared with us about what you think about the vision for this pool. And just to reflect on one of the biggest ones, as you can see there, is fun. So we're wanting to come to this place where we feel some excitement, family, that it's a friendly place, that it's relaxing. And I think one of the big things is it's colorful, inviting. And so these are the concepts and thoughts that we shared with the design team. So they made sure that this was reflective in the pool concepts. And so this is what you shared with us about your vision. We also asked you questions about the pool activities. And on this slide, we're really asking about what you would like to do in the water. And as you can just see across there, you can see the biggest thing is a space for recreation swim. You can see swim lessons, water exercise, and that middle section there where you see the numbers 77, 59, 71, and 63, I always like to call that the water games, the water activities that you can kind of do there. So out of all that responses, the top ones that came to the top were recreational swim, swim lessons, water games, which you saw there with the log roll, all those types of things, lap swimming, and water exercise. The other questions we also asked you were about the type of amenities. And so as you can see here, water slides is at the top, having activities for the children to do in the water, such as play features on the water tree, the water bench, which allows you the opportunity to sit along the water, and many others that were provided comments. And from that, we pulled the top responses that we had. And up there was the water slide. You can see a photo of the water bench lane lines, and the zero entry, which allows toddlers and children to play and be in the pool at the same time. So we're seeing some great comments. So at that point, that's just a reflection of what we see. Now I'm going to turn it over to Marjorie Flanagan, who's going to share a little bit about the arts in public places.
Thank you, Dr. Cortez. Thanks for introducing me, Scott. I'm happy to see everyone here. I wish we could see each other's faces in person, but not right now. I'm excited for the coming process of commissioning a public artist to design artwork for the pool facility, and most importantly for the community, you guys. The city of Austin was the first municipality in the state of Texas to establish a % for art program by ordinance. In 1985, voters initiated a requirement of eligible capital improvement projects set aside 1%, and then in 2002, it was raised to 2% for public artwork. What is public art? Public art is an artist's response to our time and place and the community sense of who we are. Why public art? Public art is a part of our collective memory and evolving culture. It reflects and reveals society and adds meaning to our surroundings. As artists respond to our times, they reflect their inner voice to the outside world. They create and chronicle our public experience. But most importantly, public art is for, with, and by the public, you guys. So generally speaking, there are about 5 phases to getting public art out into the world. First, staff does research about the project. That's where we are now. We learn about the project, we talk to the community, we research the site. Then they're selecting the artist. Each artist is selected by an independent panel of paid jury folks in the visual arts field. Community members are encouraged to be advisors to that jury. Once the artist is selected, approved, and under contract, the artist begins doing research with the project team and talking to the community. Once they've designed the artwork and it's approved by a variety of city and outside stakeholders, the artist builds and installs the artwork. And then it's the fun part, time to celebrate. So that's why we are talking to you today, so that we can get there. So here I am talking to you about goals for the project. These goals will guide the artist in their design process, and they will see these goals when they apply to the project and determine if designing artwork that meets these goals is something they're interested in doing. So here we are now. At our last meeting, we asked you guys a lot of questions about what should inspire the artwork. And here you can see all the amazing answers that you gave. I highlighted in orange the ones that got the most, that were repeated the most. And I put them into sort of categories so we could see how all the feedback was received. The artist will see all of this feedback, but I tried really hard to weave those highlighted words into the goals for the project. So here are the draft goals. The goal of the Colony Park Aquatics Facility AIPP project is to select an artist or artist team who will design artwork that creates a colorful, family-friendly experience that draws inspiration from the facility and its surroundings, respects and is inclusive of the diversity of the Colony Park community, integrates nearby icons from nature, the school, and peace, is easily maintained and vandal resistant in an exterior environment, and is unique in its contribution to the depth and breadth of the City of Austin's public art collection. So all of the words that you see in bold are direct words from the feedback you gave at the last meeting. I'd love if you tonight could put any thoughts about these goals in the chat so that I can make sure to see them and communicate them. I thank you so much for giving such great feedback the last time. I think it's really going to start the selected artist off on a great inspirational path. So the next slide just gives my contact information, and I'm happy to answer any questions or hear thoughts about artwork inspiration. And make sure that you sign up for our newsletter at austincreates.com. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the design team.
Thank you, Marjorie. Good evening. Again, my name is Greg Houston. I'm joined in our office by John Bird and Sean Bacon, part of our great creative team that comes to you as part of the overall design team. We're honored and we're excited to help you make this dream a reality. And so tonight is the next in a series of steps in a progression towards that reality. We're going to show you tonight some concepts that have been developed, and the concepts have been developed based on your community and to get your input to create your pools. And we are the hands that help you create that. It's based on the priorities and the feedback that we've already gotten from you. And some of those include the idea, you saw them in the word cloud, the ideas of fun. What could make this fun? And so we've expressed some of the fun in these concepts where we're going to show you pool features. What's going to happen in the pool? And in big, and what's the setting of the pool? The overall extents of the pool and the aquatic center and the support building and the views and how you sit within the park. The chill relaxation areas, and also the idea of cool in the hot Texas sun, creating some shade. So in concepts, we will go through 3 of them. And concepts are an early stage in the design where we really look at the relationships of one item in the pool to another, and the relationship of the pool to the building, and the relationship of the pools in the building to the parking. So it's some ideas that we put together, and all with the idea that we're going to get a next level of feedback from you, get your input so that we can take these 3 concepts tonight and move towards one scheme that we can bring back to you and show you what we've developed. Next. So where we are, everyone knows we're over east of downtown Austin and east of 183 off Loyola Lane. And Loyola Lane is important to us because that'll be our main access point onto the part of the park site where the aquatic center will go within the context of the overall park. Next. And we are in the context of the existing park, but we're in a part of the park that has not been developed to any extent right now. What we do have in the way of existing features are a lot of slope and hills in this part of the site. You can get a sense of that from these photos. We also have an open areas and some vegetated areas with cedar trees and hackberries and other types of existing vegetation. But according to the aquatics master plan that was referenced earlier in the presentation, the aquatic center will be very near the existing fields that are in the park. Next. And zooming out a little bit, more importantly, taking its place in the overall Colony Park neighborhood. We're very close to the neighborhood, which is generally to the north of the park site. Next. And you see Loyola Lane there. And the red arrow on this image indicates that we're going to enter this aquatic center site off of Loyola Lane. Now, there are some other features, both built and natural, that exist on the site. Here you can see the existing elementary school that's within the park. You can see the existing recreation center. And of course, the fields are immediately adjacent. But to the north, up on top of the sheet, and to the south on the bottom part of the sheet, there's an area called designated wetlands. And those are areas that carry water during stormy season, and they're protected areas. So we need to stay away from them. They actually have some buffer zones associated with them. You also see this heavy green line that runs next to the park and through the park. That's an electrical transmission easement, and there's some high power lines. So that also generally affects what you're going to see when you're on the site, and how the site will be served by utilities. And then you see the terms future residential and development. We have to consider what will happen around us. And as we place the new aquatic center on the site, what we're considering in the way of proximity. Next. So as I mentioned, we're going to show 3 ideas. They're really ideas and they're concepts that deal with different configurations for the pools, different orientations on the site, and different ideas for these fun features that you want to have. Concept A, B, and C are very similar in their configurations in that they have a lap pool, but there's another component in addition to the lap pool that's we call a leisure pool or a recreation pool. And so in terms of how I refer to those and in terminology, the other pool is the leisure or the recreation pool. Okay, next. So we're calling this concept A. Next. In concept A, we're actually positioning the 2 pools further to the bottom of the sheet or the south part of the site. And the parking then is to the north of the pool area. And in between the pools and the parking, the white boxes indicate a pool support building where we'll have restrooms and mechanical rooms to serve the pool, but we'll also have a multi-purpose room that can be used for different functions, parties and meetings and support. Also on this slide, you see the words trail extension. We hope that we can add to the connectivity of this project, whether it be concept A, B, or C, where we actually make pedestrian-friendly connections back from the aquatic center, not only to the trail system that exists in the park, but even beyond to the community, the existing community of Colony Park to the north, and then future development to the south. Next. So the parking configuration here, we're calling this configuration the cul-de-sac. And you'll see different geometries for the parking, but it leaves the ability to pull up a car and drop off right near the entrance to the aquatic center. And you see the words entry there. The pool shape is inspired by circles that are tangential or connect on their edges to each other to form the overall pool. And the lap pool has 6 lap lanes in each of the schemes. The shade structures that we're going to introduce to provide shade on the pool deck and in some cases shade on the water. In this scheme, they're called circular shades, and they'll change from scheme to scheme. Also, one major element, one of your most popular request was the water slide. And so we'll show you a little bit more about where the water slide would go in context to the pools. And we're going to provide you with some 3-dimensional images that show you the form of the water slide. Next. So I mentioned the multi-purpose room. You can see it labeled here. And in this scheme, the multi-purpose room is near the entrance and it's near the lap pool. And then we also have a lifeguard. We'll have restrooms. We'll have universal changing rooms for families to take small children in. And you can see the slide tower off to the right. There are elements in the that you asked for and we responded to, such as zero entry. And we'll explain the zero entry when we show you the computer images, the computer model of the pool. Play structures are also featured in each scheme. And in this scheme, the play structure is near the shallow water. And you can see a photograph of that in the lower left-hand column. And you get a sense of the scale. And the play structures have water associated with them. They're small, they're climbable, and the kids would enjoy each of the play structures there. We'll talk a little bit more about the water bench as we look closer in the model. You can see on the water slide, we're proposing that the slide have a tower. You climb up the slide, you experience the slide, and then you come down in a flume of water, and you'll be able to exit out of the flume of water and go back up and get on the slide again, or jump back in the pool. Okay, we're going to transition to a computer model now that will further illustrate. And we'll talk a little bit more about the pool depths and the activities that can take place within the pool. Okay, so this is an aerial view as though we're looking back down. Again, you can see the lanes of Loyola. You can see the park and the school off to the right. And now we'll zoom in. Next. So what's very distinctive is the shade structures. And again, we call these circular, but they also curve around the leisure pool. And they could take different forms and they'll have different sizes. But in general, it's going to provide a good amount of shade both off the building and adjacent to the pool. Next. And in this scheme, the best views from the pool deck will be out towards the south. And so you can see where the parking is and then transition to the building, and the views from the deck will be out towards the south. Next. Next. And every scheme will have lap lanes. Lap lanes was a priority both for recreational swimming and relaxation, but the water depth in the lap lane area, as you can see over on the left-hand side, will be about 3 foot 6 inches to 4 feet to allow water exercise to take place. This is one of the activities that you said was important, and we want to make sure that water depths are going to support those activities. Next. And the zero entry. The zero entry is an area of water that's like the beach, where it goes from a zero depth out to and gradually slopes out towards a depth of about 3 foot 6 inches. And that 3 foot 6 is the general depth of the recreation or the leisure pool. Next. But you can see there's other geometries. And so these circles come together. And one of the bases for these circles provide area with benches in them where you can sit and have a family gathering. You can have individual programming. There could be swim lessons that were organized within the bench, and all in the context of surrounding an open swim area for just free play and general recreation. Next. As I mentioned, the water slide comes out to a flume, and then you jump off the slide and you could go right down the steps into the pool or go back up onto the slide. Next. Okay, next. That is concept A.
Okay, so at this point, we have our community check-in, and we had a couple of comments and questions that came in. Miss Barbara Scott, she asked a question about the listing of our defining features. And then Mr. Bettis, thank you for your comments. We heard about the heated portion of the pool. So just gonna go ahead and do a quick check-in here. If anyone from the city or the design team would like to take those comments.
So I'm scanning the comment now, yes, and thank you. I see the comment about the features in the pool. So we are talking about lap lanes, and the activity pool I've been referring to as the leisure pool. And those will be, we're proposing those are separate bodies of water. The water slide we showed you. The bathhouse is the building that will contain the restrooms. We do have the zero depth entry. At this time, there may be some spray features within the zero depth entry, but we are designating a separate spray ground. And as you can see in our imagery in our design for the lap pool, we are proposing an area where we could have a diving board. We should have extensive shade, and the training party room is really the multi-purpose room. So training for lifeguard could happen there. Parties could be organized there. You could have a community meeting there. And there will be an office, and the lifeguard station is the lifeguard office. The pool size here is going to be between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet. rapidly. You know, I think in terms of elderly citizens who would like a place to exercise in the water for fun, we're designing the water with different water depths, and everything from the 0 entry down to the leisure pool depth of 3'6" should accommodate all ages to exercise in the pool, and where they can either touch the bottom and walk, or where they can swim in a very safe environment. Relative to a heated pool, budget permitting, we're going to try and heat at least one of the pools to make it a longer term use pool throughout the year. I think I'll ask Jody J to jump on and talk a little bit about that if she's available. Jody?
Jody, you're on mute. Thank you, Jody.
So sorry. You should know how to do that by the a year or so of doing these online meetings. But yeah, so the intent between this pool is for there would be an option to heat. This pool is an option. Of course, it is available depending on funding during the budget system. So it is actually an option.
Thank you, Jody. So we are going to have a time later in the presentation where we're going to have more comments and questions that we're going to ask for that section. And unless the design team had anything else they wanted to add, oh, there we are. We're turning it over to you guys.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, Dr. Cortez, I wanted to address one other question. And Ms. Wright asked about the water tree. At this time, we haven't shown all of the features that the pool might contain. Showing a water tree is a difficult computer modeling item. So we are still considering the water tree, but we just haven't been able to show it in this presentation. I think the other question is why 6 lap lanes instead of 8? I think in order to provide a good amount of lap lanes and a good amount of open water for recreational swimming in the leisure pool, and still come up with our reaching our goal of being between 5,000 square feet of water and 7,000, we were suggesting that the lap lanes be 6 so that we can provide more water in the recreation pool. Okay. So there was a comment about describing design concepts for children and adults traveling from the park to the pool, and I will touch a little bit more on the connectivity between the aquatic center and the park, but we will have a fence around the entire aquatic center. So when we show an entry point, that entry point is the way in and out of the pool, and the fence around the pool will allow visibility. So if someone's actually coming to the pool, they would actually need to go into the designated entrance. And so we can set up sight lines to see things in and out of the pool, but the circulation in and out of the pool area on the pool deck will be through the designated entrance. The 5,000 to 7,000 square feet is the total designated area of the water. So if you add the leisure pool area to the lap pool area, that total area of those 2 pools together is between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet. The budget, I would like to have Scott Sin address the budget after we go through all of the schemes, if that's okay. Okay. And I'll come back to some of these other questions. I think I'll move on to concept B, and we'll come back to some of these questions. Okay. So in concept B, this time the pools are placed to the what we're calling the east, or more adjacent to the intersection of some existing trails. It's kind of centered on the site as opposed to the pools being further to the south. And now this time the parking is a T-shaped configuration, and that and it exists between Loyola Lane and the pools as opposed to the side. And then you can see the white area that designates the building. So you would again progress from parking through the building onto the pool deck area and the aquatics. We're calling this pool shape the ovals, and the shade is more linear. Next slide. So you can see as the red arrow designating entry into the pool. And if you were going to go from the park into the aquatic center, you were on a trail, you would walk around. We'll create a sidewalk around the building to get into the aquatic center where the red arrow is. And the slide is off in the distance, but the orientation here sets up the best views to be off towards the park, as opposed to the south or to the north. And the open water, next slide. The open swim area in this pool is a little longer and linear as opposed to a more consolidated swim area between the circles of option A. In option B, the lap lane pool has a little larger bench area or water deck, and we'll show you more of that in the computer model. All the features that were shown with the zero entry and the water bench and the play features, the water slide, that is all included in option or concept B as well. In this concept, the multi-purpose room is generally closer to the lap pool and not quite as close to the entry. So a little bit of difference there. Okay, we'll go to the computer model and we'll tell you a little bit more about the geometry of the oval leisure pool. Okay, next. And so you can see from the parking, you would come in and you would have these more linear, curvilinear shade structures that would be between the two pools, or the shade structure along the lap pool to the south, where the shade structure would catch the south sun and shade a good portion of the deck. So shade associated with both pools. Next. Next. Again, lap lanes, but across the lap lanes, now you can see an area that's a water bench, more of a water deck, about 12 to 18 inches of water, where you could sit in water at a shallow level and relax and observe people in the lap lane area or people in the deeper end of the pool. Next. And this would also have a zero entry area. And we've separated the zero entry a little more definitely from the open swim area with these curved walls in the water. Next. And so you see that the water would transition from zero depth on out to where the gentlemen are standing in the water. They're actually standing on another water bench. Next. And now these gentlemen are just enjoying the open swim area. But the observation is available from the benches off to the right, or another bench off to the left. And you can see off to the left, an instructor, swim instructor, might be instructing some children on how to begin swimming. And so the shallow water depth of the bench helps facilitate that. Next. A little better view of the water deck and the slide beyond. And that is concept B.
Okay, so we'll do our next community check-in for concept B. We had a few comments that came in as we were going through. Mr. Bettis mentioning about the kids area long-term. He's just suggesting that he would like the kids area proposed not to be the focus of all things, but he's definitely still pushing for the heated pool. So thank you for your comment, Mr. Bettis. Ms. Scott, also just to reiterate, anyone who's listening on this Facebook Live, we will be having this presentation posted on the project website, which is Colony Park Aquatic Facility, so people can go back and view the presentation. We are also putting the concepts on the website, so you don't have to view the entire presentation, and you can actually enlarge the concepts to take a look at them. Also want to let everybody know that for those of you that aren't able to join us, or if you have a neighbor that you want to share that we are still looking for input, we currently have our Speak Up Austin survey live. So you're going to be able to also give your input and comments if you weren't able to attend. So we hope you share that with everyone. And of course, if any of you are part of a organized group, a nonprofit, a community neighborhood organization, please let us know, because we have about 3 weeks to get input on these concept designs, and our team would be happy to go give a mini presentation, and we'll probably be heading back out to the schools. So those of you that support us with all those community conversations will be back out there. So I don't see any other further comments, Greg, for that section. We have somebody that's joining us for the first time. Thank you for being here. Is the lap pool 25, 50 yards or meters? If not living in Austin, but in the suburbs, I would need, will there be a charge for the use? So there's a couple of questions in here. She's wanting to ask about the length of the lap pool. And then she wants to ask if there's going to be a charge for entry.
I can take both of them if you'd like. They're at the current design, it's 25 yards. And then at this time, there's no recommendation for charging at this facility.
Okay, great. I think we're ready for the next concept. We have one more left. Greg, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Cortez. Okay, concept C. Next slide, please. So in concept C, we're now taking the two pools and we're moving them to the north. And this will position the parking around to the south or to the side. But what this orientation does is it sets up actually a better connection between the trails that exist in the park and the entrance into the aquatic center. So in this case, we have a good, better, best in between A, B, and C is really the best in terms of this point of connection. Let me mention one other thing that you've probably seen in the schemes. We have this idea of a rain garden, and a rain garden is an element that would be planted in a vegetation area, but it would also assist us in controlling some of the stormwater runoff and discharging cleaner water into the area. So we're contemplating how much of the rain garden we can have and where it will go in each of the schemes. Next slide. Thank you. Again, we have a lap pool, but this time the lap pool has a water bench or a water deck that is linear, parallel to the lap lane. So you see where it says lap pool, that bench is a little different configuration than concept B. The leisure pool is more of a shape of a seashell or a nautilus, where you have an area for the zero entry in the lighter color, and we have a dividing wall there. And then the shade structures are more triangular instead of linear or circular. Next. All the features seen by photograph in the other schemes are seen here. But this time, the position of the multi-purpose room is not near the entry, not actually near the lap pool, but it's closer to the leisure pool. So if you have a party, it might be more oriented towards the kids being more accessible to the leisure pool from the multi-purpose room. It's an option, and and we're looking at different options for its position now. The leisure pool also has, in addition to the water bench and the lap pool, there's a bench in the leisure pool as well. And the open swim area is kind of curvilinear that goes from the zero entry around to the stairs at the other end. And now we will show you more about this geometry in the model. One of the elements about entering in option B, when you entered, you have a great view as you enter the aquatic center of the park. Well, in this case, when you enter on concept C, you have a great view of the slide beyond, and then the longer view is out towards downtown Austin. And so in each case, there's some elevation to the property. We put it further up on the hill, and it affords us better views. And from the pool deck, you'll actually see off to the north, and you'll see off to the west. Next. And so I described the pool shape for the leisure pool is more like a nautilus or a seashell. And you can see that curvilinear wall that comes out to provide a distinct separation from the more shallow area or zero entry to the deeper area in the leisure pool. Still 3'6" deep water, but a larger contiguous area bounded by that water bench. In this scheme, we actually have more of the shading more of the zero entry area. So that's one option that we're looking at. How much shade do we want to put on the water in the zero entry? Next. And in the lap pool, in every case, the water depths in the lap pool at the far end will be the depth of about 3'6" to 4 feet. Conducive to water exercise or other shallow water play. And then down at the deeper end, it will be 6 feet before it transitions into the deep diving well area of 12'6" deep. You can see the slide beyond and the zero entry area for different water depths. Again, this is not only an area for just playful activity. We're going to have the play structures in this area, and it's conducive to learn to swim programs where children and toddlers can ease into the water more comfortably. Next. And you get a sense of the overall area for the open swim, where stairs are located, where the water deck is, where the water bench is. The slide will have a run out onto the deck so kids can play on the slide, and kids of all ages, and then go jump in the pool. And then, as I mentioned, views off to the north and to the west, the city of Austin skyline can be faintly made out from this view. And that is concept C.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. We got a few comments that came in for our next part of the community check-in. John Fletcher, Mr. Fletcher, making a comment that children, families walking to the pool, the possibly flashing lights at walkways, at the near stop signs and warning signs for cars coming from the top of the hill. Yes, there is a hill from Loyola Lane to beware. So he's making a comment there. We have that noted, Mr. Fletcher. Then we also have another comment coming in from Ms. Scott. Which concepts allow the larger leisure pool?
The larger leisure pool is probably in concept A. If we could flip over there in the presentation. But it's not by much, because in concept B and concept C, we actually have a larger shelf or bench, but they're all pretty close to the same size. They're all pretty close to the same size.
Okay. And then Brandon is making a suggestion of a possible matrix where the 3 different plans can be compared to each other in terms of square footage, the parking, the pool space, amenities, to have a better idea of how they differ from each visual. Does anybody want to take that?
Well, I think I can start and others can jump in, but the next part of the presentation is actually to show everybody the 3 concepts side by side and ask distinct questions about each of the features. I believe that we still have that in the presentation. Is that correct, Dr. Cortez?
Yes, we do. There's just a
Okay.
recommendation of a matrix. So
And
we will be showing those in comparison.
Yeah, I would say that square footage of the pool water is equal, and that's probably not a factor in determining which scheme. I think the biggest factors are how the open water area is configured, where the benches are, which shape appeals to you more, where are they positioned on the site, what sort of views would you like to see, what kind of connectivity to the trails, where would you like to see the multi-purpose room in relationship to the other pools. So those are some of the variables that I think, but pool area is generally equal. It won't be within just a few feet. Yeah.
And then we have Miss Wright has noticed that we haven't mentioned the infinity edge in concept B, C, or the rain garden.
The rain garden will exist in each of the concepts, and we can go back through an image just to reinforce where that is for everyone. But each concept will have a rain garden as part of the scheme to help us with not only vegetation but with water runoff. Let's see, the other, the infinity edge. So the infinity edge is something that we've talked about potentially in the design, but since it wasn't one of those priority items, what we're focusing on is making sure that we show typical amenities and your priorities. And budget permitting, we will address other things like infinity edge and other amenities.
Okay. And then Ms. Scott's asking which pool might allow the best views of downtown Austin.
Well, the site position in concept C, the site position of the pools and the deck will afford the best views of downtown Austin.
Okay.
And coincidentally, that puts the pools, actually the pools themselves, a little closer to the existing community.
All righty. And then Brandon's asking a question. We recently had some comments about just the climate in the area in that particular Colony Park area, the heat and the wind. Just he's not sure if anything has been any measurements and any kind of wind mitigation if the pool is particularly elevated higher up. Any thoughts on that?
So yes, we're hoping to use as I mentioned, we're going to have a perimeter fence, and but we haven't actually selected the fence material, and the fence can help with wind screening, mitigation of the breezes, but the position of the building will help us as well. So if the building is positioned more to the south and the southeast, that will mitigate wind whipping across from the south. Now, I will say this. In the hot Texas sun, that breeze could be very beneficial in the months of July and August. So we don't want to really eliminate it, but we do want to be cognizant of high wind situations. One thing that I may have touched on, I'll touch on a little bit more, is we are going to be designing not only to your input, but also to the building codes and to the health department codes. And so we're going to need to comply with all the codes. So when we design structures for shade and we design the building, fencing, all of that will comply with the code requirements, including anticipated wind resistance requirements.
I'm just going to take one more question, then we'll get into the community feedback, and then we'll come back to some of the comments here. We had a comment from Christine Frindle. Hey there, Christine. What is the occupancy of the pool areas? How many people can enjoy the pool at once? do we know that yet?
We actually don't have a specific count, but yeah. But it's going to be a range of people. So it's going to be between 200 and 400 people on the low end.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I know some of your comments are still coming in. Oh, go ahead. Did you have one more thing?
I have one other thing, and it's a good comment. And Ms. Wright asked, are some of the features interchangeable? And the answer to that is yes. For example, if somebody said, I really like the positions of the pools to the north, but I really like the pool shape in another concept, then yes, we can look at interchanging a pool shape with other concepts or a feature, or so yes, there is some interchangeability. So if you like the position of or the shape of the parking area in one scheme and you like the position of the pools in another scheme, you can comment that way, and that will actually give us some good guidance.
Which is a great lead into our community feedback. As Greg mentioned, these different things that are part of the pool concepts are interchangeable. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next portion of the presentation, which is getting your feedback. And so we are going to put a link in the comment section. And for those of you that are joining us on Facebook Live, we are also putting a link for you to participate. We know we have a good crowd out there watching us on social media, so thank you for joining us. We're going to put a link in the comment section. So we're going to go ahead and have our staff put that link. For those of you that were in our community meeting #1, this is polls everywhere that we're using so that you can participate. Once you get into that, you'll go ahead and click on this link that we're putting in here. We are also putting it in Spanish. For those of you that might be joining us by phone, the link is pollev.com/Colony Park PR331. Once you get to this link, we're going to have you enter your name and hit submit. I'll give you guys just a couple of seconds. Again, you're going to click on the link there, you're going to enter your name, and it'll probably have you in a waiting mode as we get everything ready. Okay, all right, Ms. Jody, ready to go to the first question? All right, so which concept best fulfills the vision of the community? We are going to have you look at all 3 concepts here. And keeping in mind the vision that you gave us in these different concepts, fun, friendly, inviting. So we have their concept A, B, and C. And which one do you feel meets the vision of the community? And you're going to click on the option that you prefer. And we'll be able to see this live. Okay. I see your comments there. Is everybody able to get in? I see they might be waiting for the presentation to begin. Give us a couple of seconds. And if you're unable to get into the link, we can also hear your comments in the chat. So if you want to put which concept you prefer, you can also put those in the chat or in the comment section online. Awesome. It sounds like some of you are able to get in now. Okay, technology. We're going to get this poll to work. Hang in there with us. And if you want to just put your option, with some of you already doing that. We may need the city, the PARD, community engagement staff to help us respond to the comments in Facebook. It's not allowing the Cortez team to do so. So if you guys can help us copy the link onto Facebook Live. Thank you, Justin. Be patient with us. We'll get this for you. Okay, here we go. Thank you, technology. Coming in. Which concept best fulfills the vision of the community? Here we go. We see you voting in there. And it looks like for the Marmon Mock team, concept C seems to fulfill the best vision for the community is what we're saying. We also have some votes in the chat for B and additionals for C. Okay, we hear you there. One of you guys want to give me a thumbs up from the community that you're doing okay. You can see everything from the polls. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. Polls are still loading. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. Okay, thank you, Ms. Wright. Ms. Aldridge, we're going to go ahead and wait a couple of seconds to get your, there we go. Awesome. Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and go on to the next question. And this one here is, which pool site location do you like the most? As we mentioned earlier, there's a possibility to go ahead and have these different parts of the pool interchangeable. And so as was mentioned earlier, concept A is on the south portion. If you kind of look at where it's placed, concept B is east, somewhat facing the Colony Park District Park. And then concept C is north, and this is the one that is facing somewhat the neighborhood. And so you are going to be selecting the same way you did the first option, which one, and yes, Ms. Wright, is A at a higher elevation is the question. We'll get to that. So concept A, B, or C, south, east, or north, and you're going to go ahead and see that question loaded, and we're going to go ahead and get your responses. For those of you that are tuning in that have not been able to access polls everywhere, please feel free to put your comments in the chat on Facebook Live, and we will make sure we include your options into our tally here. And for those of you that may still be having trouble that are here with us in the Zoom call, you can do the same thing. Poll site location. Concept C that is facing north. Here has 7 votes. 2 for B, 2 for A. Pool site location. Okay, now that we talked about the site you prefer, we are now going to ask you the next question. Which parking lot do you like the most? So there is conversation about the parking lot and the different images and diagrams of the parking lot. So we're going to show you those. Concept A is more of the cul-de-sac shape. Concept B is a T shape, parking on both sides. And then concept C is a roundabout. So we're wanting your feedback on which one would you prefer. Again, we're going to load the questions so that you guys can go ahead and select your preferences. Ashton Cumberbatch is asking a great question. So we're asking you about your preferences that you could select. Does not have to go with concept C. So his question is, do the attached parking and other orientations go along with the site? No, it can. Actually, Marvin Mock, I don't know if you need to answer that question. He's asking, can the parking change based on the site, or does it have to stay with concept C?
I think the parking could change somewhat. So if you really like the geometry of a cul-de-sac as shown in option concept A versus what we're calling the roundabout in concept C, then we could make that work with a concept C site. However, a lot of it depends on topography, and I think in general, if you put a concept A parking on concept C location, it would be a kind of a hybrid between the two. It would not look exactly like concept A.
Thank you, Greg. Great question, Ashton. Okay, just a couple more seconds here on this one. Okay. All right, so the next question we're going to ask is the shade structures. You saw that each of the shade structures for each of the concepts had a different type of element to it. So which shade structure do you like the most? You saw a circular concept. You saw the linear that kind of goes across, and then you saw the triangular. Which of those three concepts do you like the most? You're going to go ahead and load the question. Which shade structure do you like? Okay. Great. So it looks like the circular shade structure and concept B is linear. Thank you, Ms. Gillespie, who continues to write her comments. Thank you. Okay. All right, we have a couple more questions for you. So we're going to go ahead and move on. That was the shade structure. So now we'd like to ask you about the leisure pool and the shape that you saw and which one you might like best for those. So we have three different options. And the first one you saw had nodes and it had these little activity areas. Concept B was kind of this oval shape, had an open swim in the front. And then concept C had more of the C shape. Which one do you see yourself swimming and hanging out in? Which concept do you like? Nodes, oval, or C shape? So we're going to load the question so you guys can select your preferences. Miss Elizabeth, you can tell us which one you like. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to move on and you can think about the next question for park access. So this next question we're going to ask you is which park access do you like the most? And as you know, the beautiful Colony Park District Park sits right off to the side of this pool where we're planning the aquatic facility. So concept A showed access to the park through the parking lot. Concept B, you had to move around the complex for concept B. but that's fine. It still has access. And then concept C is near the entrance. So it's kind of off to the side of that roundabout parking. And so we want your thoughts and your preferences on how you would see yourself coming from the Colony Park District Park to the aquatic facility. So we're going to load that question up for you so you can provide us your preferences. Yes, anything with a tie, we can play rock, paper, scissors. All righty. Which park access? Okay. So it looks like those are all of our questions for you, and we're super grateful for you participating, hanging in there with us with the technology, and allowing you to select preferences that you saw that you feel meets the vision and different elements of these concepts that you would like to see. So at this point now, we're going to go ahead and move into the question section. Unless there's anyone from the design team or the city that has anything else to add, we are going to kind of go and scroll through some of the questions and comments that we have. Love those of you that are going to join us to put your screen on so you can help us answer some of the questions. All righty. And if we miss you, just let us know. All right. I'm heading back up. Mr. Fletcher asked, are there plans in place to manicure the surrounding trees and shrubs and not remove all the greenery? It's a question that they're asking. Who would like to take that?
Yeah, I'll answer, Dr. Cortez. We have two elements that we're dealing with on the surrounding vegetation. One is up against the building where we're actually developing the parking and the building and the pools. We're going to have landscaping around there, but it needs to be very easily maintained. And so we're going to evaluate the maintenance of the vegetation as well as the beauty of having it. When it comes to beyond the area around the aquatic center, we probably do, there are a couple of factors there. We're probably not going to change and manicure much of that. One, it is more environmentally beneficial to leave that existing and natural vegetation where it is and not disrupt the soil with new vegetation. It helps us with water runoff. And the other aspect is it really helps us with cost. So we're only going to develop most of the area around the building for those two reasons, the environmental and the cost.
Dr. Cortez.
Hello. Thank you, Liliana. I'm just going to go a little further up because there were a couple of questions. Malika is asking, can the lap pool be changeable to have an adult pool and children pool for some other days, or is it a permanent feature? What do you guys think about that one?
Start and maybe,
Go ahead. No,
Okay.
go ahead.
So one thing we probably didn't explain clearly, the lane lines that float on top of the water, those can actually be removed at any time. And then they could be put back up. So they're fairly interchangeable in the water. And when you remove them, you create a big open area that is available for water exercise, free swim, swim lessons. And so it's an open programmable water. We don't have to have the lane lines in place all of the time. Jody?
Yeah, I would just add that when we are developing the schedule for the facility, we would have times of the day that it would be lap time only. We would also have times of the day where it would be recreational time in the lap pool. So there are opportunities to both. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you
And
both.
I'm sorry, one other point is not only could we remove them all or have them all there, but we could remove some and keep some so that there could be simultaneous lap swimming when another part of the water has some other activity.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, we have a question that might be further along in the planning process, but can there be concession stands like they do in some pools in West Austin?
Over to you, Jody.
Yeah, I think so. So I believe that the plan at this time for concession is vending, but we also have opportunities with our contract office that we can bring concession into the parking area and things like that. So there's opportunities.
Okay, great. Will there be lockers in the dressing? Oops, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Okay. We also have from Ms. Pamela Williams, will there be lockers in the dressing rooms?
Lockers is not something that we typically have in our facilities. They do become to be things that get broken or not maintained properly. But it is something that we can look at if the community's really wants them, but it's not something that we have success with. But really great question.
We have another one, just hours of operation, what we may be thinking about.
Yeah, so that's going to be done through the budgeting process. So there's two types of budgets. We've got our construction budget that I did see a couple of questions about those, and then we have our operating budget. And as we get to the completion of this project, we will be recommending a operating budget. And that operating budget will be determined by council in the budgeting process. So it's not completely lined up yet. But you know, your typical pool at a pool like this that might have a lapsing pool and an activity pool, we would be looking at something like recommending a year-round operation for the lap pool, while the activity pool would be something that would be seasonal. There's two reasons that you want to do that. One, you don't really have it's the best use of the money, so that you're not heating both facilities. I think I answered that question and probably gave too much feedback, but I hope it answered the question.
Thank you, Jody. And Brandon asked me not to read all his comments, but he did give us some comments about just where what he liked about concept A and the cars, and then also the shade structure. So I just want to acknowledge that. I did see your questions and your comments there. Let's see. Okay. If a heated part of the pool is not an option, can there be a hot tub? I do not see that in some pools at the city, but it is a question asked. And I do see more like Deep Eddy. Okay, let's see. All right. Target date for completion open. I think we got to that. And Ms. Wright, elevations per options. I think one of the things that might have been a little confusing, but I guess they're asking about, was there a difference in each concept elevation? And Greg, I know you got to that question. We just got that comment there from Ms. Wright.
So the further north you go, between A, then B, then C, there's a little height variation. But overall, because we're up on the higher part of the site with all three concepts, there's not a great deal of difference in the elevation of the entire complex. So it slopes off a little more gently to the north and provides a broader view, but the elevation is nearly equal within 2 feet.
Okay, so that looks like all the questions and comments we had. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Jody.
Yeah, I did at the beginning. There was a question from Ms. Scott about the HUD budget for the project and making sure that that was discussed with the team. I was hoping that Scott could address that. Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember what the question was exactly? Just what the budget was? Was that basically
Yeah,
it? Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we have $13.1 million for this project, and I am not planning on spending, $13,095,000. I am planning on spending $13,100,000 for this project. So every ounce of dollars that we put into this will go towards this project, and that includes the construction costs. That includes all the fees that we have to pay to the city. Whether it's the water connection, environmental fees, permitting fees, there's a whole slew of fees. And then also the consultant time as well, and the cost for them, cost for myself and some of the other city employees working on this. So it's all that kind of lumped together into that 13.1 million. So that's my charge as the project manager, project contact for this, is to make sure we keep that on budget and get as much out of the money as we can. And I plan on spending every single dollar. I was gonna say I plan on spending more, but I shouldn't say that. So I will plan on spending $13.1 million, which is what's been allocated for this project, and that will happen.
Thank you, Jody, for seeing that question and getting to that. I do think we got to the majority of these questions. These comments will be compiled and put in as our community feedback. Thank you guys for letting me. Oh, Ms. Scott, you do have your hand raised.
I do. I had put a comment into the comment section, and Miss Tabasco let me know I sent it directly to her, and I didn't intend to. And my comment is that it seems that the community is asking for only 2 items outside the normal features. So we need to make this happen. We need to make the infinity ledge or edge happen, and we need to make the heated pool happen. We've been out here for almost 50 years without a pool. So just asking for 2 features that are not normal is not, I don't think it's a whole lot to ask for.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Okay. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Scott. Thank you guys for participating in the community engagement portion of this meeting. Scott, it's all yours.
Oh, I was like, what am I doing? Okay, timeline. So first of all, thank you, everybody. I mean, this is wonderful. All these comments, we'll definitely go through them all, making sure we're getting them addressed, compiling them. I think keep in mind too, the survey for this and this information, I know we've hit you with a lot of stuff tonight, but this will, feel free to get to the project website. It'll be up again. So if you want to add more comments for the next, I believe, 2 to 3 weeks, the survey will be up. But right now, as you can see, we're here at the 2nd meeting in April. We will definitely have a 3rd community meeting, which hopefully all this information we can gather together, get leaning towards a single concept and bring that back to you, to all of you, and call it your pool for the 3rd meeting to go through all the details of that. And we'll have a lot more details on that as well, including some where the costs and preliminary costs are going to be at. And get basically towards a final design, because then the next steps are, as you see, to get into permitting. We want to get into permitting early in 2022. That's been a process that unfortunately, it takes a year to get through the city process. And I'm trying to figure out ways to make that shorter, but right now it's not looking good, so that we can then start construction in early 2023 and get a pool open by the end of 2023. So that's where we are right now. And I think that is, we're on schedule right now. And so we plan on staying that way. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody participating tonight. Be sure to get on the website, tell your friends, tell your neighbors that, we want more feedback at all times. Yeah, Speak Up Austin, as you can see on the slide there, and look forward to getting more feedback. And thank you, everybody, for your time. Well, I got like 2 minutes left. Can I talk for 2 minutes? Do I have to talk for 2 minutes more? Dr. Cortez, please tell me no.
No, thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, as always, for your input and for your feedback. We will be taking this. Thank you for your time tonight. Everybody watching also on Facebook Live, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And again, if you would like us to come out and give presentations to your neighborhood association, or you would like us to share more information to gather your feedback, just let us know. But thank you for being here today.
And thank you guys for all the hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thanks, Ms. Scott.